Hello and welcome back to Just Another Football Podcast. Back again. I'm joined by George and Fergal tonight for a bit of a Chelsea therapy session, amongst other stuff. Boys, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, very well. Well, not so well with Chelsea.
Nice to hear that, George.
But no. Generally, myself, I'm doing well. My footballing opinions, not so much, or footballing, things, not so well.
Fergal, how you doing, pun?
Not so good.
Not so good.
I'm sick of this Chelsea team.
Let's get into why you're not doing so good.
And then Abramovic might be saying, "No, I do want that 1.5 billion."
Yeah. Funnily enough, he's not the charitable philanthropist that maybe some people on football Twitter might have you believe. In fact, he is a hard-nosed businessman. Who'd have guessed? We'll get into that maybe a bit later on, but I want to touch on Chelsea. We'll start with Chelsea. Another loss at the weekend against a fired-up Everton. Frank Lampard, get him on over his old club. We'll talk about the ramifications for them in a bit, but on the Chelsea side of it, I suppose looking more big picture, guys, how concerned are you with the form sort of since the end of December, really? It's been mainly 2022. It's been quite patchy. You've obviously fallen well out the title race. I don't think you're in a top four race. You guys might disagree, but I don't think you'll quite get dragged into that. But how concerned are you with the form this season, particularly given the objectives going into it?
I'm concerned because I feel like we were saying the same thing this time last year about a lot of the issues about the going forward. It's not great, and sort of the Champions League form covered that up. And you know, if we perform, if we get over the line against Madrid, then you're probably looking at the same thing again and going, "Oh, what a great season!" So it is that difference of a cup competition run that changed in the outlook of the season, which you shouldn't really rely on that. But yeah, it's similar to what we were saying last season. Is like that. There's just not enough going forward. We thought Lukaku would solve that. It's just it's not great, and the fact that Tuchel hasn't worked it out and he's not getting the best out of the forward options after spending the money he did on Lukaku as well. It's worrying to see that. And yeah, I think it might just be I think in fairness, I think the form at the moment might be down to a couple of factors. I think there's a lot of players that are probably tired and maybe can look to Tuchel to not that he's maybe overplayed a couple of players. I think the Chelsea situation, it looks like it might be having an effect at the moment, like with the ownership. I think the fact that Rudiger decided to leave, I can imagine that's maybe unsettled a couple of other players. The fact that that's now official, I thought he might hold on until Chelsea's ownership gets sorted out, but he decided to leave before then. I do think that he would have stayed if we had been able to offer him a contract. But he did want an awful lot of money, so that was another thing. But yeah, there's just a number of things that are going wrong, and again, I feel like in hindsight now, I don't think we're too far forward on from last season, and I'm saying the same thing again, that we need a massive clear out before we sign too many players coming in. It kind of similar to United, not in as bad a situation, but and the answers are a bit clearer to this question. I'm going to say is which players do we back to move forward with and make a spine around?
Yeah.
And which players do you move on? And some of them have made that decision for us, but I think a lot of them in the forward area, particularly, we're going to have to. There's going to be, especially with the wingers. The wingers they're all pretty much in the same situation of this, hot and cold form, have good moments, bad moments, and then flatter to deceive. And it's for me in the forward area. It's only really Kai Havertz that I'd be, and Mount that I would. I think those two that I would definitely be keeping, and anyone else could go, and I don't think I'd be too worried.
I think Tuchel's the same as well. I mean, I put this in the show notes. I think when you look at what you've got to do in the summer, I think the problem you've got is you've got 3 defenders leaving, so you're going to need to sign defenders, and then you've got Chilwell coming back from long-term injury, so you might need to get cover there. But Tuchel also doesn't trust any of the forwards, really, apart from, as you said, Mount and Havertz. And I wouldn't really say Mount is a forward. If you went to a 4 at the back formation, he wouldn't be playing in a front 3. So there's just a lot of work to be done now. Like I'll come to you in a minute on it, George. I'm not as down on it from kind of a removed perspective. Take the emotion out of it. When I look at Chelsea, I still think they're a good team. Like, they outplayed Real Madrid and probably should have gone through, and with a better strike. I mean, you swap the strikers around, you go through. As you say, that's not good enough. It shouldn't just hinge on knockout football. But like when I watch them, like Chelsea are the better team in 90% of the games they play. They're clearly still a good side.
Yeah.
It's not like when you mentioned Man United are bad. They're not a good side. They don't dominate games. They don't have that sort of firepower throughout the team. Whereas Chelsea, I think what you said is right, that they're a bit goal shy. They don't score enough goals.
I think then that puts pressure on the defense
and they've started conceding more.
I saw a good start with the weekend with Aspilicueta making a mistake that since the start of the season before, we have 14 errors leading to goals, and the only other team ahead of us is Everton on 15. Which I think you could say maybe that's unlucky, maybe that's personnel, whatever. But it's just an interesting stat. But yeah, there's quite a lot I would like to change about the team. In terms of formation, I think I'd like to move away from. One point before George, you come in, is that I think we haven't played well and got a result since Juventus.
Yeah.
I have now we've played well enough in some games, but we haven't had like a title looking like a title challenger, looking unstoppable since that Juventus game where we beat them 4-0. There's been games like Madrid where we played really, really well, and then the result didn't come with it. And the League Cup finals the same. And both those are in competitions where that costs you dearly. But yeah, there's lots of little things that are going on with Chelsea. I agree, it's not the end of the world, but we were expecting to be challenging for the title, and we're miles short of that, and that's really disappointing. And it does feel like.
Do you want to come in on this, George?
It does feel like we're a long way away from Man City and Liverpool.
Yeah. I think for me, obviously, this time last year, or at least after the Champions League win, Tuchel's position was unmoving. There was no way or even indication that he wouldn't be there for the whole of this season. I now think the situation's almost becoming to the point where I'd be backing to maybe look for someone else if there was someone better on the market. I don't think there is. I don't think there is, and I think he deserves to have another year. Which is so strange because usually I'm the Chelsea fan that says we shouldn't sack a manager. I backed Frank, we backed Di Matteo. I even thought Villas-Boas should have more time, which is ridiculous to be fair, and might come up again in one of our later debates about United and whatnot. But for me, there are positives though in terms of if you look at the defenders that are going out in terms of Aspie and Rudiger, or potentially Aspie and Rudiger. We can move away from that back five. I think with those defenders, it was just too much of a risk to play a back four. It now looks like getting rid of Zuma, all kicking cats aside, was a bad decision. I think he's better than Malang Sarr. I think he's better than Christensen. I think he's better than Aspie as well at this stage in his career. Yeah, I think there was just a lot of mistakes in the transfer market. I think there's a huge number of mistakes. Getting when James went out injured, we were looking at Livramento's form at Southampton and going, "Wow, I really wish we had a backup right wing back that we could use." And I think a lot of the blame should fall on Tuchel. I think he's got a lot wrong in the transfer market. I don't know how much. I think he gets a fair amount of say, or at least I hope he does. But I'm not too.
I think he had a say
green.
over Gerhi or Magnan Sarr.
Yeah. Would you? Yeah, and Gurhey, that's someone
I
I did completely, overlooked. I mean, again, like you said, I would say Gurhey is a better player than Malang. So I'd probably say he's better than
Tamori. All three of the guys you let go
Tamori.
are.
Yeah,
All
that's
three
Frank.
of them.
That's a Frank decision.
Mm.
Something I'm not happy about either. But Chelsea will always have money to cover up mistakes, or
Well,
They
it's
have
not.
to
It's
this
not. It's
point.
not. It's not certain now, and that
No.
makes it even worse.
I don't
And
know. I
then-
think it's fairly certain with the bids that are coming in. I think Chelsea will have money to spend, and we always will. We bring in a lot of capital as well. We're not one of these teams that have to fake sponsorships. We do have a
You've
large
been running
following.
at a loss, George.
I think the point is, George, you're not going to have kind of this approach where mistakes can just be written off. You're right when you point out, like, you're. It's not like you're just going to go back to the days of cars behind the goals and all that sort of stuff. But equally, you're not just going to be able to write, like, how many poor signings Chelsea have made over the years, and everybody makes them, but it kind of doesn't matter. It's okay, write that off, go for another one next year. Paying managers out of their contracts
It's unbelievable that
years
like
in advance.
But I
you
think
have
the manager thing is more significant than the players. Chelsea have such a large number of players to shift on every season. So Deadwood that covers for most of the signings. Now I'm not saying we always are in the net positive. We're not. That'd be a lie. However, and yes, we do run at a loss, but the loss is largely due to wage expenditure and also paying out managers. Now, I think not re-signing Rudiger is a massive step towards fixing the wage structure at Chelsea. I mean, Callum Hudson-Odoi is on far too much money. Rudiger does not deserve 200k, above 200k. I'm sorry, he just doesn't. That's just not tenable.
Well, no, not when you consider.
my
and I know
opinion changed on the Rudiger thing. I was firstly annoyed at Chelsea, but then the amount of money that he ended up being asking for it, I was as you said, it doesn't work within the structure.
It was a lot. It was a lot over 200 from what I was.
I was
closer to
seeing
4.
300. Yeah, 350. Yeah, up to 4.
I do understand it. Yeah.
Mm.
Go on. I think you wanted to say something, Phil.
Well, it's interesting as well the amount of. I think it's going to be a big summer for Chelsea. Well, it is because there's new owners. They're going to have to make their mark. We'll see how willing they are to spend money on the team. What they're willing to write off, especially being the first transfer window. Are they able to just go, yeah, we'll write off Lukaku. We'll just get rid of him and fix the team. But there's a lot of I went through it in my head, the amount of players that have been linked away and getting talked about away are near the end of their career, and
it's a lot.
There's a lot. There's like Jorginho, Sarr can't ever play for Chelsea again. I'm so like he's just not up to it.
No, he's not. No.
So like you've Rudiger, Christensen, Aspilicueta might go. It's not guaranteed, but he could go. I don't know if he should go either because we genuinely might need him for cover just because of how many other people that are going. Jorginho could go. Alonso's getting linked away. Then you've got front line of Lukaku, Werner, and all the other wingers. Any of them could go, and I think it'll be a case of who gets bids and who doesn't as to who stays. And so you're talking half the starting 11.
Mm-hmm.
Kepa could go as well.
Alonso.
And there's a lot of seniority in there. There's Rudiger, Jorginho, Aspilicueta if he goes, be massive. Alonso, a lot of big senior players and it's been talked about how crucial Rudiger is to Tuchel in terms of being a leader in the team. So it's gonna be it's not gonna be an easy summer to replace all that. We also haven't got, from what I've been hearing about the current youth crop coming through, we haven't got those players replaced like we did last summer. Colwell and Gallagher and possibly Gilmore could come in. Gilmore probably needs another loan, but the other two, I'd be happy enough for them to come in. But in terms of lads coming straight out of the academy, I'm pretty sure it's quite a young group that's currently in the academy for the age group, and they're actually not doing that well because of that. So they're like a couple of years away, a good few of them. And so there's just a lot up in the air. And a lot of change needs to be made to switch to a 4 at the back. We need a defensive mid. Too many who we were constantly getting linked with and talked about, now being heavily linked with Liverpool, and amongst other clubs. And now we can't move for any players. I don't want Declan Rice.
No, I don't.
We could end up getting him.
I think the positive to spin this in a positive light is that we speak about maybe being a bit smarter with our transfers, and yes, we do need a rebuild, but we can certainly hopefully adopt a Liverpool Arsenal model where we're bringing in younger players.
Arsenal aren't there. Don't give them. Okay. Don't put them in the same bracket as Liverpool just yet.
But the model where we're paying less for players. One, because we've not got that big tag anymore as sort of oil money tag, where naturally you have to pay more. You have to pay a premium. Man City have to pay far more than they actually should for players. Chelsea have had to and I'm not saying that as poor Chelsea. I'm saying just as a fact, Chelsea need to pay more than most clubs. That maybe after a year, that sort of perception sort of dies down. We start paying less for players.
It only dies down if we don't go into deals that are
if we don't do ridiculous deals,
which means we might that's the hard thing. You might have to end up losing out on some deals because you're trying not to be that club anymore.
My only worry is, can Tuchel rebuild a club? I don't really. I mean, I guess he did so with Dortmund a little bit after Klopp left, but I'm slightly worried about him as our future manager, and I know that just sounds ridiculous and entitled, but can he transition into a 4 at the back? Will he transition into a 4 at the back? And is he really going to give space to players like Conor Gallagher? And is he going to get the best out of them? I don't know if he's I don't know. There's a lot of doubt in my mind at the moment.
I'd agree with a lot of that. I think the fact that we haven't improved attacking wise over the course of a season really is. Now I give him credit in that, or like Chilwell on James, massive miss. James, especially for his creative numbers, totally get that. Especially when they were starting to be used and coming inside, that was actually looking exciting and looked like he could get another couple of seasons out of straight at the back if you sort of revolutionise it in the way that it looked like it was going. Maybe there is a future there, but the fact that the attack without them two players, we've been really poor attacking wise. Really, he hasn't been able to get a tune out of anybody consistently apart from Mount really.
Does it come down to Lukaku or Tuchel in this summer? Like, do we have to get rid of Lukaku?
Tuchel wins that.
I don't. For me, I don't think so. 90 million pounds, and I don't think we recoup that or anywhere.
But
near
90 million pounds, and it's not the new owners who bought
that. That's
They don't have ownership over.
I know, but I still. In fact, I don't even know if I prefer Tuchel or Lukaku. And I know that sounds ridiculous. I think another manager that can get a tune out of Lukaku, that, and I believe that potential is there, would be more lucrative than.
You saying Conte go in for Chelsea?
Inadvertently.
know,
I do.
For the audio listeners, George has a wry smile on his face, shrugging his shoulders.
I've got to be consistent here, given what I said about Pogba last week, and I didn't agree with the excuses being made for him. It's exactly the same for Lukaku. When you cost 90 million, you've got to be a self-starter. It can't be on a manager to have to build the team around you and have the perfect, as Ali likes to call it, working conditions to succeed. I think he's got a lot to answer for. It was quite damning actually on Sunday. Chelsea chasing a goal, not really threatening, looking like they need a presence up front. You never thought Lukaku was coming on, did you? I mean, he was just glued to that bench. Yeah. I just could not see him coming on.
And you've no hope even if he did come on.
No. No, quite rightly, he's not coming on. Like, there's a reason, you know? Like, he's been playing that poorly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's something deeper there, but potentially that's me being naive. I mean,
I definitely think we like. There's constantly on Chelsea Twitter, you'll see pro Lukaku and against Lukaku. A lot of the pro camp would say he's making loads of good runs, similar to what the pro Werner camp were saying. Like the two of them like to play in behind a lot of the time, and they're not getting picked out. And again, and that's a Tuchel problem. If in that definitely. Regard, but yeah, neither of them been good enough in the rest of the play to really justify like oh, you're really not getting the best out of them. Well, they really haven't shown anything. And Werner's mini purple patch seems to have died off a cliff.
A few good games, and he's
I was good while it lasted. Fair play to him.
He like Chelsea, very inconsistent. I want to just quickly talk about Everton. Before we move on, I think uncertainty is the word with Chelsea. They're not in turmoil, but there's just kind of a lot that's up in the air going into.
There's a lot that's up in the air. A lot of big decisions need to be made on players, on the club, on strategy moving forward. Just to finish off on Tuchel.
Yeah, of course.
I think that he it would not surprise me if he got sacked next season. His track record of falling out with people above him, the way that this summer's going, and the way that there could be a max exodus, it just might not suit him. Things might not go his way, and then if you go into a bad run at all, then that could be game over. So it would not surprise me if he got sacked next year. It's a massive summer window for Chelsea to basically build half a new squad. Put it like this: if half a squad isn't rebuilt, we're not going to be anywhere near the title. And if we do it, then there's a lot of change that might go wrong either way. So it's a slim chance come the end of the window. I think that we will be looking like title challengers, because there's a lot to do and a lot that needs doing, and there's a lot of questions within that.
Yeah, I think it would be hard enough, let alone when you factor the fact that you're going to have new owners coming in. They might look to rebuild the infrastructure internally, whether that means getting people in for recruitment. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. There's a lot that's up in the air. Quickly on Everton, big win, gutsy win. I mean, it wasn't pretty. There was a lot of shithousery going on, but they needed to win. They needed to respond to Burnley's victory, and they did that. Where does this leave the relegation battle, do we think?
I just want Leeds to get relegated. My bias is just overflowing. I can't conceal it. I would absolutely adore. It'd be just so much happiness. But on that, I think Everton are probably still favourites to go down.
Yeah, at risk of jinxing it, because I'm very superstitious, and we've got Leeds this coming weekend. I think when you look at their next two games, being Arsenal and Chelsea, there's a good chance that they lose both, and then. And I know you're struggling at the moment, but there's you'd still expect to beat Leeds.
Yeah.
I'm worried for Leeds. I have to say, I am worried for them, because the other two teams have got a bit more momentum. I think Everton look like they can grind games out,
didn't we? You asked us who's the favourite to go down. You said it'd be hard to bet against the team with momentum. And at that point, Everton didn't have it.
No.
Chelsea, Lampard calls in a favour. They've got the momentum now, and Leeds don't. So I still think momentum is a hard thing to shift, but it does only take one game.
Yeah,
That's the thing. No one would have said the momentum was with Burnley when they lost like 6 of the last 7 or whatever, and they
and then
sacked Sean
sacked Dyche as
Dyche.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just think if you get a couple of wins, like that is what it. If you win a couple of games in a row down there, that's all it takes. It's not like your Liverpool and City having to win every week. Like it doesn't take loads. But I think Everton with the home games against Brentford, against Palace, they're going to be important because they're still flaky away from home. So
and look, if Mike Jackson can get thrillers like that every week and then Burnley will stay up.
Ben Mee, it's Ben Mee, mate. He's magic.
Yeah,
he's
he's
absolutely magic in the dugout. Ben Mee, in my opinion, is a better manager than he's a better manager than Ralph Rangnick, which kind of brings me on quite nicely actually to my next discussion point of the podcast. Look, I tweeted something out last night. It was slightly tongue in cheek, but then I sort of sat on it and I thought, well, not really. And it was along the lines of, I think you could make an argument that he's one of the worst appointments in Premier League history. Now, I just want to make clear, I think he managerially, forget all the other stuff, because you just can't judge him on a consultancy basis. There's a lot of stuff that goes on there. Like, you can't judge him on the conversations he's having internally with people. Like, when people go to me, but he's telling them he's outed who's not good enough. Well, you don't know that. All you get is what he says in press conferences and what goes on the pitch. When, let's face it, what you're talking about, there's a lot of speculation there. So I'm just judging him on what he's produced as a manager since he's come in, because that's what he's currently employed to do. And you can judge the consultancy stuff later on. But I think since he's come in, they've played 22 games in the league. At the time of him coming in, they were 2 points off top 4, right behind Arsenal and Spurs. So they were well in it. It's not like they were well out the running for top 4. It was perfectly attainable if they went on a good run for the rest of the season. He's got the lowest win ratio of any Manchester United manager post Sir Alex Ferguson. So that is the likes of David Moyes, Louis van Gaal, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. They've all been criticised heavily, right? Wow. They've all been... those guys have been vilified, and maybe deservedly so. Mourinho's in there as well. In the cup competitions, out in the FA Cup to Middlesbrough, out of the first opportunity in the Champions League to Atletico Madrid. And then I look at them and I look at the style of play. What is it? This guy's supposed to be the godfather of gegenpressing. And so I thought, at least what will happen here? I thought there's 2 outcomes. Either he'll come in and he'll just get them all together and try and grind out results for the rest of the season. And it's just results first. We need to get top 4 and we'll fix it over the summer. Or he's coming in and this is the way we're playing. We're going to transition to this. And going forward, what we're going to do here is we're going to see who's up to it and who's not. And the problem is they've done neither. The results have been poor and the performances have been poor. And they've not just been poor.
No clear style of play.
There's no clear style of play. They pressed for 30 minutes against Crystal Palace. And since then, I've seen no evidence of it. No. So I just think when you look at it through what is essentially a manager's remit, which is to get results and implement a style of play. And I know he's an interim, but let's face it. What did he say in his first press conference? He said, if I think it's the right thing, I will recommend myself for the manager's job. So there was and I don't think it was ever a realistic possibility, but in his mind, he was angling for it a little bit. He was chancing his arm. Let's face it. I think he was coming in and thinking, do you know what? He's at Spartak Moscow previously. I'll come in. This is a good opportunity for me. He was very specific about the terms he wanted before he accepted the deal. And I think he thought, I'll chance my arm here. I might go on a good run to the end of the season and get myself the job for 2 years, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer did. The results have been terrible. The results have been absolutely terrible. Now, I know people, and I'm not just talking about your average football Twitter fan. I know people personally. I know people.
That's not a threat, by the way. He's just
just declaring it.
just
getting
matter of fact.
I know people. You don't want to mess with
me. good friends of mine, right? Are Man United fans. I know they're reasonable people. They don't get carried away. And I've asked them, like, do you think I'm being unfair? Like, do you think maybe this kind of where I'm saying he's one of the worst in the Premier League, maybe that's a bit too far? And they said they think he's been brilliant. I mean, I cannot understand for the life of me how you can possibly say a guy that's come in, the football's been bad and they've got bad results, has been brilliant. And it's kind of this idea that
the Man United equivalent of Thai.
It's kind of this idea that he's basically shown how bad everything is, both through them losing games, which isn't a good thing, right?
They're broken.
But
They are
also,
broken.
honesty in press conferences. Now, I think he's in a very, very specific situation where I think it became pretty obvious he wasn't getting the job permanently, that he was going to be going into a consultancy role at the end of the season, which God knows what that means because he's off to manage Austria. So it's clearly not that big of a role. It's not going to take up that much of his time if he's doing international management concurrently with that. And I think, do you know what? That gives him free reign. He can come out and say these players are shit. Like, he actually can. He's in a position where he's not going to be relying on them going forwards. He knows his role at the club's going to be pretty
He can
minimal,
burn bridges if he wants,
Yeah, he doesn't need to keep these players on side. And I think, people will tell you he's played a part in this structural reform. How? What? By showing that they're not a good football team?
Yeah,
you can't seriously be crediting him with that. I don't understand that as an argument.
It might be true. That,
of course it's true. I don't disagree.
It's shown him to be terrible and know who to pick, but you can't give him credit for that.
I think the guy talks a lot of sense. I think this is why people like him, because actually the way he speaks, the way he communicates, he seems like a very articulate guy that knows. I think he knows what is required, but that's one thing. Actually getting it is a completely different thing. He comes out every week. The one thing that sticks in my mind every single week, he comes out and talks about controlling games. Have they controlled one football match under him? Like, seriously, can you remember?
Even the Brentford win, I wouldn't say it was like completely dominant control. They definitely kept it at arm's length, but Brentford did have a control of it at times.
I think when you're looking at the body of evidence which is there, not what he's saying in press conferences, because let's face it, I think anyone could do a good press conference. Put me in the press conference room and I'll say the right things. I'm pretty confident,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
You've got to judge guys on what they deliver. There's too many intangibles that people are trying to credit him with. He wasn't responsible for getting Erik ten Hag as manager. It's pretty well known he wasn't influential in that selection process. It was taken above his head. The results he's achieved with that playing group have been really, really average. I don't think they're a particularly good playing group. I'm not in it. None of this is by any means a defense of the players that are there, because they are a toxic bunch of charlatans and they need binning. I don't disagree with him when he sort of talks about the fact that it's going to require a big rebuild. But when I judge him on what he's been there to do, it's to manage the team to the end of the season, to get results. Yep. It's not been to give a good press conference telling everybody how bad it is. And actually,
I was just going to say, even if you're going to be kind to him and go, right, okay, this team is so bad and it actually long-term isn't beneficial to grind out results. What they need is a transformation and a clear style going forward. That hasn't been done either. So, like, even if you're trying to be kind to him,
not in the slightest.
It's not about results now. It's about the future. It's about this and that. Yeah. There hasn't been any clear progress. Maybe it is due to it being halfway through the season, but even so, the fact that he's binned off the 4-2-2.
He abandoned it after 4 games. Yeah. 4 games it took. They played it. I think it was Newcastle and Norwich, wasn't it? Those 2 games.
Yeah, it was like, this is the new manager, new style of play. Gegenpressing, godfather of German football. Here we go. And he abandoned his philosophies, and to get results, and then he hasn't got that either. So he hasn't really got a leg to stand on in terms of on-pitch performances and results.
Yeah. I think it's been a bunch of square pegs in round holes from the Man United board. One, obviously, and also Rangnick himself. Bringing in Ronaldo, and Ronaldo still playing under Rangnick. It pretty much proves his whole philosophy. That he's having to rely on Ronaldo for what I think. How many goals has Ronaldo had to score?
I saw a stat the other day from ESPN. It was like last 10 goal contributions, right? It had listed the scorers. It was Ronaldo. I think there was Fred was one of them, and it was just Ronaldo was the other 9. Yeah, he's carried them.
He's absolutely carried them, and that was one of the criticisms of Solskjaer. In fact, I could probably argue that Solskjaer would be in a better position right now in the league than Rangnick, and I don't think that's a crazy statement. He's not got rid of toxic players. He's not been able to, like you said, install a style of play. I remember there was a manager. Was it Frank de Boer that came in for Crystal Palace, and he lost every single game. He lost every single game. He didn't score a single goal, but he had a philosophy, and it's like, well, there's no point. And and once you start losing 4 or 5 games, I remember they also tried to shift that philosophy. You can't have both. You can't lose.
I remember he had a press conference where he was asked about, like, have you asked the players to play a different way? And the board was like, no, I don't know why. I don't know why they're passing it from side to side. He was basically trying to say he wasn't trying to make a massive philosophy change, which I found funny at the time. I think your overarching question, though, Harry, the one that, you know, the clickbait title is Ralph Rangnick the worst ever appointment. I think that might be a bit far, but if we take it step by step, so the first step being, is he the worst Man United appointment since Sir Alex left the club?
Yes.
Worst managerial appointment.
Yeah, managerial
absolutely.
Appointment.
But by saying that as well, I'm not blaming him for the mess that they're in.
Yeah,
He's inherited a bad squad, low on morale.
It's not a bad squad, is it?
I think it is. I think it's a terrible squad.
I mean, they've got aspects of that squad.
I know, but it's a hodgepodge. There's no.
It's more the toxicity for me.
It's the attitude, but also I think stylistically, there's no coherence there. You've got 3 or 4 different, like, play styles. You've got players that suit counter-attack, players that suit tiki-taka. You know, they don't have anyone that presses high. I'll tell you that much. I just don't think there's a uniform playing style within that squad. But I like, by saying he's the worst that they've had, I'm just judging him off what he's produced. I'm not blaming him for the mess that they're in. I don't like the idea of an interim manager. I think they threw the season there and then. It's not his fault he was made interim manager. Essentially, that's undermined him in terms of maybe he didn't feel like he could come in and implement a style because the players aren't going to have it if they don't believe in it and they know he's going at the end of the season. Maybe he thought they'd give up on him. So I'm not blaming him for everything. But
has there been a worse interim manager? I mean, Big Dunk done better than him.
I think on top of that, I think what you're trying to sort of say as well, Harry, is that it's the worst appointment, as in the board holds so much responsibility on top of the managerial performance. So that sort of criteria of actual results, managerial, performances as well of results, performance of the team, and then on top of that, what the club were trying to do with the appointment, as in the theory side of things rather than practical. Every bit of it, every criteria, it's just a mess. It's an absolute mess. It was a poor decision to appoint an interim manager for 9 months.
Yeah,
it's insane. It's
too long.
Once you do that, it is really writing off the season. Although I don't necessarily disagree with writing off the season, which sounds metal for United. I think it kind of did need to be done. The worst thing they could have done is appoint another long-term manager that didn't suit.
But what I think, Fergal, if you're doing that, and you're right to say, like, they shouldn't have gone for someone that would have been, give him a 3-year deal, and he's just not.
People are saying Conte, and I don't know if that solves the problem either.
But what I was going to say,
it doesn't solve the ambition of who they want their manager to be.
I think had they appointed Rangnick, and then like a couple of weeks later they go, we've given Rangnick the job, and Ten Hag will be our manager at the end of the season, and you're just committed to that, and you believe this guy is the man, and we're going to wait to him because we can't get him out of his contract, even though that's bullshit, and they definitely could, and they're a massive club. This is our guy. I think the thing that undermines that for me is up until recently, but with everything you're sort of led to believe, what you read in the papers and online and that, they've kind of been umming and ahhing between Pochettino and Ten Hag. You know, they haven't decided which one it was going to be. And I think when you're doing that, it undermines the idea that, look, we have a process, we're going to wait for the right man. Well, you're still weighing it up with a few weeks of the season left to go. It just makes a complete shambles of the whole thing. I think what it is, though, for me, I think the reason I suppose I feel quite strongly about this is I'll come back to it. I see people praising him. It's one thing saying that he's not responsible for this, but actively praising him for a good press conference. I'm sorry, you could get a fan to go into the dressing room and tell you who aren't good enough out of the players. Like, that is not hard to do. That is not a skill. Saying to everyone, they're not good enough, they're not good enough, they're not good enough. I can speak on this as a fan. We've had it at Arsenal before where people go, oh, they're not listening to us enough. Like, they've got to do this. No, I don't want them to listen to the fans. I want them to know better than the fans. I want them to be one step ahead. You know, being a good manager or being a good technical director is not listening to what the fans want and doing it, because they're fans at the end of the day. Like, there's a reason they're not running football clubs and in positions of power. So I'll come back to it. I don't think he's the worst. I think that was a bit like of hyperbole, but I think he's been awful. I think he's been really, really bad. I think like what they've produced under him has been nothing short of a shambles at times. And however much he might want to abdicate responsibility from it all, he is a big part of that in terms of this is the way they've played under him. He can't distance himself from that.
Yeah.
What is the biggest title we could give to Rangnick? Is it worst Man United appointment since Sir Alex?
You know what I think?
Could you go top 6?
I think he's been the biggest disappointment, because everything I was hearing when he came in was he's the godfather of gegenpressing, and he's made Klopp and Tuchel. I thought, okay, this fella's going to come in, and they might not get it right at all times, but what you're going to see is they're going to press the bollocks off everything, and it's going to be fun to watch. It's been dreadful. Like as George said, I don't necessarily agree. I think Solskjaer was done. Like the players just weren't playing for him. Yeah. So I don't think he could have continued. I think it was untenable. But the fact that it's even a debate whether they should have kept him over getting this guy in, it kind of tells you that he's not done a good job as a manager. I don't care about all the other stuff. You can't judge that because you're not seeing it. You can't accredit him with stuff that you have no evidence that he's been influential in. I just can't understand that.
Most disappointing Premier League manager in Premier League history. Most disappointing manager.
And that's a good way of putting it, actually. I think rather than worse.
I think it's better to say the way that you said it before and put appointment in, because it's not all in him.
True. Most disappointing. Yeah,
it's not. It's just not. It's just fallen so flat. Especially when you think, okay, they've come out in the first 30 minutes against Palace, and this is going to be the way they play. And I know you always get a new manager bounce, but it's just been such. I mean, I've loved it. I love seeing.
Yeah, I've loved it as well.
I really do. But if you're judging it for what it has been, it's been a complete disappointment. It's been such a...
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. Can any Man United fan truly, in their heart, genuinely say that they are happy with the situation they are in? I think that's...
But a lot of it, George, a lot of it as well is this kind of blind optimism. And it might bear fruit that they're projecting onto Ten Hag. They feel like this guy's going to come in and save them. That's honestly generally the sentiment among Man United fans that have any optimism. It's all on Ten Hag. Now, how you're accrediting Rangnick with any of that,
that's the problem, isn't it?
I don't get the connection there.
Yeah, no.
But they basically feel like they've been listened to over getting him in over Poch, and that this guy's going to come in, he's going to rip it all up, and they're going to be playing great football next season. I'm telling you now, if they're 7th in the league next year, playing shit football and not going anywhere, people will have a very, very different view on the job that Ralph Rangnick has done this season. Yeah. I'm telling you now.
And the Ten Hag thing, I think a lot of United fans think it's done, dusted. We'll be back to greatness again, or he maybe not back to greatness, but he's definitely the right man for the job. I think there's still question marks over him, as how well he suited over Pochettino. I think I still would have went for Poch over Ten Hag personally, with a lot of things, but it's. I mean, there's just so much going on with United that needs sorted. The director of football situation needs resolved. It looks like Ralph Rangnick won't have any input in that sort of level.
This is another thing. People need to get real, right? If this guy has been influential in all of this stuff, do you really think they'd be letting him go off to do a managerial job with Austria at the same time? Not
and the whole 6 days a month thing is meant.
Honestly, what will happen what will happen? He will just not be there one day. They won't put anything out because they probably won't need to.
He'd
He's
be on
a
gardening leave.
consultant.
Isn't that what they call it? When you get paid for the
Yeah,
job, you
yeah.
just don't
Yeah,
show up.
yeah.
Exactly. That's what will end up happening because he's not a technical director or a director of football, so they don't need to announce anything if they were to like let him go or whatever, pay him off, or he just left the role. But I can't foresee a situation where he's there in a couple of years. I really can't. I think he's had enough of it. I think he's been beat for weeks, and it doesn't surprise me that he's moving on to pastures.
I think he's lined up for a career in the communications department, head of the PR
He's
team.
the talker. Do you know what? He's PR. You've got to
Media,
give him
yeah.
this. You've got to give him this. Now, I do notice this with German managers, like Tuchel. He speaks
Tuchel's
very well.
great,
He's very PR savvy.
Yeah.
In fairness to Tuchel, we slide him off. Like he's been brilliant through the whole ownership,
The ownership stuff.
and same with
I agree.
Emma as well.
I really like.
Yeah.
I really like.
So
No, you don't, George. You said you wanted to make the 5 minutes ago.
No, I don't think he's like. No, it doesn't matter.
So we can conclude this segment, I think, anyway, with sort of unanimous agreement. Ralph Rangnick, good talker, shit coach.
Yes.
You pretty much agree there. Lovely.
Yeah.
Liverpool through to another Champions League final. They made hairy work of it. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen them as poor as they were in the first half. Well, certainly not for a while. Anyway, they probably played some worse stuff under Hodgson and co. But it's been a while since I've seen them that poor. And it looked like the European specialist Don Unai Emery was going to get it done again. And then the Villarreal goalkeeper had a bit to do with Liverpool's comeback. It's funny, this guy, I remember him because we played them last year in the semi-finals of the Europa League, and we lost them. I said the one thing that will haunt me to the grave about this tie is the fact that we did not test this keeper more, because he is absolutely awful. He's terrible. I have to say, Emery must be a genius to get to a European semi-final past the likes of Bayern Munich and Juventus with. I think this guy might be a worse goalkeeper than Alex Runarsson, and that is saying something. He is that bad. But Liverpool through. Any chinks in the armoury, you think, from that, or was it just a one-off bad half and they'll just shelve it and move on to the weekend?
I think it's not necessarily a chink in the armour because it's incredibly hard to do, but I think it sort of does prove if you want to beat Liverpool, you have to go hell for leather at them, and that's what I'm really out in the second half. I mean, giving credit to Unai, great, but he clearly told his team in the second half to set off them, not suit Liverpool down to the ground.
Classic Emery. Classic Emery. It's been there and seen that,
in the first leg. Like, what that went so well in the first leg. We'll set off them. Let them take a breath, get a bit of confidence back, and then break us down. Like as soon as they set off them, it was game over. Which it clearly was an instruction from Emery to do that. So he's a fool for doing that. Because you have to just go at Liverpool. And Liverpool were always going to score anyway, no matter what tactic you do. So you have to just go at them. And they were there. They looked shaky. They looked there for the taking. But that's the way you have to go at them. Chelsea got that whenever we played them, we've made them look not invincible. I should have beaten them a couple of times this season. So that's the way you have to go at them. I think Man City are probably the only team that could beat them that's left in the competition.
Do you think though? Because I'm torn because I've seen Unai Emery, and the biggest criticism I would lever at the guy is he is obsessed with tinkering. It's his biggest undoing as a manager. He overthinks stuff and changes stuff around, and it leads to confusion. Do you think it was simply the fact that they'd got the 2 goals, they were back in the tie, and so he thought, okay, we're going to sit off now, like we've done our bit? Or do you think it was? Do you think it was energy levels though? Can you sustain that pace of and that intensity of just going at a team like Liverpool for 90 minutes?
I get it doing it. If you're if it's later on in the game, it's just after half time. and
too early.
Too early, and you're not even in the lead yet. You're not going through.
No.
At the moment,
So you're essentially trying to do it
extra
for
time.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to do it for 65, 65? No, 75 minutes.
What
including
what
extra
I
time.
would say on that is that there is a third factor of the quality of this Liverpool side and Klopp also having that team talk. Obviously, they're going to try and dominate the ball a little bit better. They can regain confidence. Yes, I do think it was part of the strategy, the tactics for Villarreal to sit back. However, on top of that, to compound that, Liverpool were always going to try and dominate the ball a little bit better, move it a little bit quicker, use Trent to, effectively, no one wants to see Trent with his back to goal. You want to see Trent in the opposition's half with the ball. And so effectively doing so, changes the tie completely. And I do think Klopp will have communicated that to the team that they do need to control the ball a little bit better, and they have the quality to be able to turn that around as well. On top of someone actively choosing to sit back and defend.
I just don't think it was. It wasn't that Liverpool all of a sudden were amazing. There was they literally just dropped off. I'd be amazing to see the heat maps. I imagine it'll paint a picture.
I get your point. Like they were kind of playing like in this instance, it's 3-0 football, but essentially, when you're playing as if you've got a 2-goal lead or whatever, and you invite pressure on, but you've actually got. Well, they didn't have any lead. They were fighting the tie. But I'm saying, like when you invite pressure on, I think you can do it when you've got a bit of a buffer. But when there's a goal in it, in this case, it was a goal.
You can also do it for as long as they kept their lead for about 10 minutes against the top side. It like Liverpool. If you do proper backs against the wall, like just trying to clear
it doesn't work. You have to get very lucky.
10 minutes. Before
I mean, when you look at Liverpool, I think they failed to score in 3 games this season out of 60 odd they've played. It's not very many.
I thought Villarreal should have a penalty before the second goal. I thought.
Yeah, it was interesting with Alisson. Yeah, but I suppose they did score like pretty soon after.
Peter Walton said it was a free kick out. So that just tells me it was a definite penalty.
It was a definite penalty, yeah. But Liverpool through, so the quadruple's still on.
You're not allowed to
Man
say that.
City.
You should have to do a shot of something for saying that naughty word.
It must get to people because I have to say, out of all the top 6 clubs or whatever, Liverpool bother me by far the least. But the thought of them doing a quadruple is pretty sickening.
Opposite for me. Ireland's
they
Liverpool and United fans, so it's
yeah. There's not real reason though. Arsenal have we've never contested a title with them. They're not geographical rivals, apart from the fake COVID test stuff. There's no real reason for us to have beef for them, to be fair. But we need them not to do the quadruple because cheaters never prosper. Just a quick preview for tomorrow's tie: Man City taking a 4-3 lead to the Bernabeu. How do we see that one? Is Pep going to galaxy brain it again?
You can't write it off, can you? You really can't, especially with just this. I don't know. There's something I actually really like about this Real Madrid side. I know they've knocked out Chelsea, and that maybe that's actually some people would be really bitter about it. I think there's something quite magical about the fact that they're so poor, and yet they're just grinding these results.
Finding a way to get it done.
It hurts. It hurts when it's your team. So I would love that against Pep Guardiola's City, especially with his history with Barcelona and his just consistent cock-ups in the Champions League. And I think you can't write him off for maybe doing something stupid like putting Laporte up front or something like that. It'd just be... Yeah, I'd love to see it. But
should we make a prediction, like a genuine prediction as to what tactics?
As to what he'll do. What's the injury? What's the injury situation? Have they got any right back?
Oh, well, is Cancelo it?
Did he play the weekend? They didn't have because John Stones played there, didn't he? And then they brought Fernandinho on in the first leg.
I'm on the good website. With all the injuries,
I just typed in injuries.
Yeah,
that's it.
Kyle Walker's out, Nathan Ake is out, and John Stones is out. Cancelo looks
So
like he's
Cancelo's probably back. So we're not going to see Jesus at right back. Someone genuinely asked him that in the press conference. They were like, "Could we see Jesus at right back?" I don't think you would ask any other manager that, but I wouldn't put it past Pep to try something like that. I don't know. Maybe he'll play. Maybe he'll play without a goalkeeper. Try and create overloads in other areas of the pitch.
Yeah.
Kyle, because you have to have a goalkeeper on the pitch. So Kyle Walker, goalkeeper.
Goalkeeper right back, and he's injured, mate. He's injured.
Injured Kyle Walker in goal.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, Kyle Walker's 75% chance of playing according to Premier League injuries.
75% chance of playing in goal.
yeah.
But I wouldn't. I'm thinking. My guess is he switches to two defensive midfielders. That would be my. Is that
like a genuine like one? That you think
I'm trying to think of a genuine one.
Yeah,
I'll go 2 DMs.
Didn't he against Chelsea last season? Because you played them twice, beat them twice. He played like a turgid midfield in the FA Cup game.
We played them,
and then he just didn't play a DM in the final.
We played them 3 times in the run-in.
Yeah, one was a league game, wasn't it? When they'd already won it.
And the final. He didn't play his best 11 once.
In any of them.
And in the final, he dropped Fernandinho.
Because that was... I seem to recall, like, in the FA Cup game, I think he played Fernandinho and Rodri. And then in the Champions League game, he's like, all right, screw it. Neither of them can play. So, yeah, he just... it frustrates me as well because I kind of see, like, second-hand evidence of it at Arsenal. Like, every time Arteta does some galaxy brain bullshit, I'm just like, yeah, Pep inspired that. 100%. He's got that sort of idea from fucking Pep. So the next time I see like a Willian false 9 equivalent, that's on Josep Guardiola. Quick prediction, guys. What do we honestly think? Do we think City get it done?
Yeah, 1-0 City. I know that's ridiculous. Yeah, that seems like quite a ridiculous prediction considering the result. But
it's a cagey one, you know. I don't know how City will approach it because, like, you don't see them defend Leeds. It was weird in the Atleti game because kind of they were in control for 3/4 of the tie, but then in the second half of the second leg, they kind of lost the plot a little bit and were actually quite lucky to keep the lead for the tie and obviously go through. I don't know what sitting on a 1-goal lead is weird, and obviously away goals aren't a thing anymore, so. It's not as like if away goals were a thing, Man City probably would have to go there and try to score because if you lose 1-0, you're going to go out. But they're not, so I don't know. I don't know how they'll play it.
I'll go Real Madrid. I think Kareem the Dream, not Ali's brother. Don't get excited, Kareem. Benzema. I think he's gonna. I could just see him stepping up, and I also just think Man City in the Champions League, I think they might bottle it.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
So I'm gonna hope that's the case. Although it's weird. Do you have a preference over Man City or Liverpool winning the Champions League?
Well, again, what I will say about Liverpool, it doesn't bother me if they win it. Like, yes, they're pretty annoying, but like when you compare it to Man City winning their first, or God forbid when they played fucking Tottenham in the final, I mean, Jesus Christ. I feel like that's part of it with Liverpool and me. It's like I'll always owe them Arsenal as a club will always owe them just for that. So I definitely prefer Liverpool over Man City. I mean, I'd rather just Real Madrid won it, but
it's tough. Like I'd rather City win the Premier League and Liverpool win the Champions League, but I'd much rather Madrid win. The Champions League.
That goes without saying.
There's this bullshit of support the English teams. I mean, surely that's not a thing anymore. Good God.
No.
I seem to remember, like, when you guys won the Champions League in 2012, for whatever reason, like, I obviously wasn't on Twitter at the time, and it's kind of not as intense with the rivalries. It's like, It didn't actually bother me that much, but then it bothers me a lot more, like, now. And obviously, you added a second to it last year, but, like, retrospectively, you get a lot more, like, stick about it. And I think with Man City, we need to get back into the Champions League before we can even talk about fucking winning it for the first time one day. We're a long way off that, but I just don't. I never want them to win it, and I know they probably will because they just got loads and loads of money to just keep throwing at it.
I like the group of Champions League winners being as small as possible, especially English winners.
Yeah.
So if I had to choose, I probably would pick Liverpool as long as they don't win the league.
Yeah,
long as
no,
they win the
yeah, that's a
quadruple.
really good caveat. That
You're in a position though to stop them doing the quadruple with the FA Cup.
But as we've just done half a podcast on, Harry, I don't have too much faith in us to do that at the moment.
I don't know. I feel like you're due something against Liverpool. We'll do a preview closer to the time, but I feel like you've played well in the games and not gotten anything out of them. So you could be due one. We'll leave it there for tonight. Thanks for joining me, boys. Thanks everyone for listening. To any Man United fans tuning in, I will give you a right of reply if you think we're being absurd about Rangnick or indeed the overall state of your club. We are looking to do some Man United podcasts over the summer because I feel like there's a lot to unpick. I don't think one podcast does it.
Your Twitter handle's Tactical Ali, isn't it?
Yeah. So Tactical Ali is my Twitter handle. So if you want to send me any abuse, just direct it there. Yeah, lovely jobby. Thank you very much for joining me, boys. Get your tweets into Tactical Ali, and we'll catch you all on the next one. Cheers.